The Galactic Preservation Institute's maximum security containment wing hummed with the electric tension of 1,000 dangerous species locked behind reinforced barriers. But none commanded the same fearful reverence as Enclosure 47, where Kral paced endlessly, his massive form casting shadows that seemed to devour the light itself. Kral was a Vorthax, the galaxy's most feared apex predator. Standing nearly 3 meters tall when upright, his body was a nightmarish fusion of muscle, fur, and razor-sharp claws that could shear through starship hull plating. His elongated snout housed rows of serrated teeth, and his eyes glowed with an unsettling crimson luminescence that spoke of pure, unfiltered rage. 7 zookeepers had already resigned rather than work his sector. 2 had been hospitalized after merely attempting to deliver his food through the automated systems. The Galactic Council had declared Kral unsalvageable, a specimen too dangerous for rehabilitation, destined to live out his days in isolation until his inevitable execution. The galaxy had collectively decided that some creatures were simply too savage to coexist with civilization. Then Marcus Venn volunteered for the assignment. The Institute's director, a 6-armed hexapod named Zarthen, had stared at Marcus with all 4 of his compound eyes in disbelief. "You understand what you're asking? This creature killed 3 Kronar warriors before capture. The Kronar are bred for combat. You're just a human." Marcus had smiled that peculiar human smile, the one that other species found both disarming and deeply unsettling. "Exactly," he'd said simply. On his first day, Marcus entered the observation corridor adjacent to Kral's enclosure. The Vorthax immediately charged the barrier, slamming his massive frame against the transparent aluminum with enough force to make the entire structure shudder. His roar was a sound designed by evolution to trigger primal terror in every species that heard it. Marcus sat down cross-legged on the floor, pulled out a thermos of coffee, and began reading a book. For 3 hours, Kral raged. He clawed at the barrier, howled threats in his guttural native tongue, and demonstrated every intimidation display in his considerable arsenal. Marcus occasionally turned a page, sipped his coffee, and completely ignored the apocalyptic tantrum occurring mere meters away. When Kral finally exhausted himself and retreated to the far corner of his enclosure, panting with fury and confusion, Marcus stood up, nodded politely at the werewolf, and left. He repeated this routine for 17 consecutive days. The other staff members thought Marcus had lost his mind. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as the species that befriended anything, a reputation that oscillated between endearing and idiotic depending on who you asked. But this was different. This was Kral. On day 18, something changed. When Marcus arrived with his book and coffee, Kral didn't charge. He watched from the shadows, those crimson eyes tracking every movement with predatory calculation. Marcus, as always, simply sat and read. After an hour, Kral moved closer, not charging, just positioning himself where he could better observe this strange, soft creature who refused to show fear. Marcus glanced up from his book. "Good morning, Kral," he said conversationally, then returned to his reading. The Vorthax's ears twitched, the first sign of anything other than rage that anyone had witnessed from him in months. By week 6, Kral would approach the barrier whenever Marcus arrived, no longer with aggression, but with something that might have been curiosity. Marcus began narrating what he was reading, his voice steady and calm, treating the galaxy's most dangerous predator like a companion rather than a threat. The breakthrough came on day 53. Marcus arrived to find Kral pressed against the barrier, making a low, rhythmic sound that the translator struggled to interpret. The Vorthax was injured. During the night, an automated system malfunction had caused a structural panel to fall, crushing his left hind leg. Without hesitation, Marcus overrode the safety protocols and entered the enclosure. Every alarm in the facility began screaming. Security teams mobilized. Director Zarthen's panicked voice echoed through the corridors, ordering Marcus to evacuate immediately. Marcus ignored them all. He approached Kral slowly, hands visible, speaking in that same calm voice he'd used for nearly 2 months. The Vorthax could have killed him in a heartbeat. Every muscle in Kral's body was tensed, instinct warring with something new, something unfamiliar. Trust. Marcus knelt beside the injured leg, carefully examining the wound. Kral's massive head lowered, bringing his teeth within centimeters of Marcus's exposed neck. One bite, and the foolish human would be dead. Instead, Kral remained still as Marcus worked, removing the debris and applying emergency medical foam from his field kit. The werewolf's crimson eyes never left the human's face, seeing past the fragile exterior to something the galaxy had consistently underestimated. Humans didn't survive their evolutionary path by being the strongest or the fastest. They survived by being stubborn, empathetic, and absolutely convinced that anything could be befriended given enough patience and coffee. 3 months later, Marcus Venn stood in front of the Galactic Council, with Kral sitting calmly at his side. No restraints, no barriers. The assembled representatives from 100 worlds stared in undisguised shock at the scene before them. This creature was declared irredeemable, Marcus said, resting one hand gently on Kral's massive shoulder. But the problem wasn't Kral. The problem was that everyone treated him like a monster, so he became one. Humans learned long ago that how you treat someone often determines who they become. Kral's low rumble translated through the chamber's systems. This human is Pack. The council granted Kral his freedom and established Marcus as director of a revolutionary new program, using human methods to rehabilitate species previously considered lost causes. The program's motto, suggested by Marcus himself, became legendary throughout the galaxy. There's no such thing as a monster, only a creature no one bothered to understand. As they left the council chambers, Zar then approached Marcus with something that might have been respect in all 4 of his eyes. "I called you foolish." Marcus grinned, scratching behind Kral's ear in a way that made the fearsome Vorthax lean into the touch like an overgrown puppy. "You weren't wrong, but sometimes the galaxy needs a little foolishness. Someone has to be crazy enough to try." Kral's rumbling laugh echoed through the corridor, a sound that would have terrified the galaxy mere months ago. Now it just sounded like contentment. Humanity, the galaxy had learned once again, didn't conquer through strength. They conquered through the stubborn, foolish belief that everyone deserved a second chance, even savage alien werewolves, especially savage alien werewolves.